Hello, y'all. Welcome to another Saturday stream of American Crime in Crimea and Information Warfare Press. We're going out on all of our channels tonight since this is our regular spot for American in Crimea. And, but it's more propaganda oriented. So, um, yeah, Grassino, I agree. This. And I'm not going to let you criticize me, Grassino. Okay. Hey, Alicia, how are you? Claudia, Svetlana will be back soon. Arkady will not be here tonight. He has gone off on vacation. And I do have a message from him that he wants me to share with y'all. But I don't have WhatsApp open. So, wrong guy. So Arkady is on vacation until I don't know, a couple of weeks. So I had a long conversation with him yesterday, but so that's where Arkady is, unfortunately for us, because this would have been one of those things that got him fired up. So, and I like debates with Arkady, so we often disagree on things. So we are going to talk about, let me turn off my ringy ding dinger here. And so we're going to talk about Western hypocrisy, because that's really what I'm coming here to talk about. You know, the West is real good at pointing at Russia and saying, look what Russia does. It's against human rights. It's a dictatorship. It's an authoritarian government. It's whatever you hear in the Western mainstream media and the particularly the Biden administration. If you can't tell by watching our streams, there's no lost love between me and the Biden administration. So the problem that I see here is that I say this often, every time that the West says Russia does this, you have to remember that they themselves do it as well. So we're specifically going to talk about suppressing protests and arresting protesters. So here's one from back in August of 2019. Solar Electric just went off. Russian opposition plans new protests despite 1,000 arrests. And yep, this stuff does go on in Russia. Often the Russian government says it's because there aren't permits, or they're illegally organized, or there was violence. Keep that in mind for a little while. And of course, those who speak out against the special military operation risk arrest. In this one, there was supposedly 13,000 protesters arrested back in 2022. And of course, the Russian government right now is complaining about Nancy Pelosi's remarks that, you know, she made undemocratic statements claiming that Vladimir Putin was behind the pro-Palestinian protests in the United States, which is a real clincher. And, you know, that's the one that gets me, because reality is a good majority of the mainstream media in the United States is actually blaming George Soros. So Is it Putin? Is it Soros? Um, gee, Antifa's behind it. There's money from somebody behind it. They're hiring all these protesters, these, hundreds of thousands of college students are being paid to protest. Now, that, yeah, grassy knoll, you want to see how low in the negative it goes. So anyway, this is Amnesty International. And they did a study saying that no place to protest, you will get arrested, and basically the standard Western propaganda of, it's against human rights and things. So I just want to point out, Amnesty International is accusing the United States of the same things. So here's an article in U.S. News and World Report from 2020, and this was against the Black Lives Matter people. So, this stuff does go on, and of course, Russia's quick to get their hands in on this as well. So, University of this all started out in the Northeast. It moved into Texas, where they called out troopers to arrest students. And, all these arrests are, yeah, Claudia, you better be careful about your anti-Russia statements, or you may find yourself muted. So just saying, I don't accept, statements taking sides in any of that. This is about Western hypocrisy. So if you have something constructive to say about that, go ahead. Otherwise, be quiet, because you obviously are getting your news from the Western mainstream media and don't have the ability to do critical thinking. Sorry to offend you, but I call it like it is. So the argument that the United States in particular is giving about why they're arresting these students is that they're violent protests. And some of them have started out with a bit of violence. Columbia University, they had threats, they had students threatening to burn down the ROTC building. Now, there's actually been, people looking into this already. It turns out that these were people that were not actually students. They were probably from one of these anti-Israel, pro-Palestine organizations that came in to stir things up. So, a lot of protests start out with a little bit of prodding and poking from somebody outside. Let's go back. I'm going to annoy Claudia here on this one. Let's go back to Maidan in 2014. Now, I was there, so I don't want anyone saying I don't know what I'm talking about. I was there the end of 2013, start of 2014. My brother-in-law was paid as a college student to go out and protest, $500 US, paid by, guess who? Newland, as she's handing out biscuits. And yeah, so they say there was a sniper, Dave. But, University of Indiana, they can't seem to provide any proof that there was a sniper. So was there or wasn't there? I don't know. If you listen to this story, this will take you all the way back. I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit. But Kent State University, how does this one get you? This is an article that was just updated, believe it or not, just a couple of days ago, originally published in 2017. Now, many of the talking points in this History Channel website actually have been modified from the original to use the talking points from today, such as, why did the National Guard shoot at, the students in Kent State? And they also claim that there were snipers and they had rocks thrown at them. And, again, this is something that has been researched for years. And, um, they found out that there were no snipers. There were a few rocks thrown by people from outside the student body. And, so yes, you get a little bit of violence thrown in there, but the Western media makes it sound like these students are doing a George Floyd thing and, looting stores and burning things down. Somebody did burn down at Columbia the ROTC building. So, yes, Claudia, the Democrats blame everything on Russia. The Republicans blame everything on Russia, too. What significance is the you grassy knoll? You just want to knock me off the subject here, so I'll save your question. I'll come back to that later. So in Kent State, there's been a lot of research into it, and it is actually, these guardsmen were taken to court, and believe it or not, they were let off with a warning that both sides were too violent. So, like I say, this article was updated with today's talking points. It is not an accurate article anymore. It used to be. History Channel isn't the best source of history. So that's back in 2017. And where was I going with this? Troopers. Okay. So this is today's or yesterday's, storyline. And, it's gone from snipers and rock throwing to it's George Soros. It's gone from Antifa and outside, yes, Dave, the magic bullet theory. So, think about it again. Maidan in Ukraine, same thing. Those darned Berkut snipers in the president's office shooting at the poor, peaceful protesters down below. Now, it started out peaceful. They paid students to show up, but then outside, money and aggravators came in, got things riled up, right sector. And, you had burning cars and burning tires and shooting and all this going on. So I'm not saying there is no outside money in this, aggravating things to some extent. But let me read Arkadiy's statement to you. Arkadiy says this is all, let's see. He said, these arrests are a joke. These people are released an hour after they're being arrested. And he's trying to compare this to Russia, who he believes keeps protesters in jail for 100 years before they release them. They do the same thing in Russia. They're released in 24 to 48 hours. But he says these are fake Soros protesters, just like Black Lives Matter was. I don't know who funded Black Lives Matter. We know they had some financial things going on there, and the head of BLM embezzling money. Can I tie that to Soros? No. There's actually no proof anywhere that any of this is tied to Soros. Could it be? Maybe. So Arkadiy goes on and he says he's trying to think if he's ever seen a real protest. He says, likely only in movies. So Arkady's view is that there are no real protests out there. People don't just go out and protest. I will disagree with him. I have seen real protests. Now, are they these massive protests like these students being arrested? Sometimes. I know that, the March for Peace in Washington last year um, was actually a peaceful protest. And I know that was organic, that was not funded by Soros or anyone else. So Arkady goes on and says, these zombie students never made a single noise about having 2 years taken away from their life with a virus, BS, being forced to be injected over and over. They not even once demanded the ceasefire for Ukraine and to make a deal, which is way bigger work. And we'll find out how many millions died a decade from now. And now they care about Palestine. Give me a break. Now, he says, that's my message. And, I understand Arkady is Jewish and he is exceptionally pro-Israel. And he believes that what the Palestinians are getting, they deserve. He served in the IDF. He says they, constantly attacked Israeli forces. They constantly raped and pillaged, all the things that, the Israelis are being accused of. Comparing it to Ukraine, no, none of these students are protesting for Ukraine, mainly because the mainstream media and the US government, both sides, say that, Ukraine is in the right, Russia is wrong, and that's just the way it is. So this is the propaganda factor. Now, can we say that there is no pro-Palestinian protests out there? No, we can't say that. There are pro-Palestinian news articles out there in some pretty reliable news sources for the US. NPR is, they claim they're outraged. How outraged are they really? But, they're going on about, how bad these arrests are. Like I say, Amnesty International. So I'm going to take you on another trip through history. This is where I was going. I was going to end up with Kent State. But here in 2023, New York paid out money to protesters that were arrested during the George Floyd protests. And the reason they did this is because they found, although there were many violent protesters out there, there were many peaceful protesters that were arrested as well. And here, New Jersey, this is 2019. 39 protesters were arrested. They blocked entrances, and there were only 100 protests there because the protesters did not have a permit to protest. Remember what I said earlier about Russia saying that they arrested people for not having permits, and the United States saying that was BS. It's against the Russian Constitution for free speech and freedom of assembly. The United States does exactly the same thing. So this is pure hypocrisy. Canada. So this is Canada a couple of years ago. And again, they called out the police. They arrested people. And he was peacefully protesting near Parliament Hill in Ottawa. But they say he was causing a disturbance. So he was exercising his right of free speech. And, London, somebody mentioned London not too long ago. And yes, this is Breitbart, and I don't usually do it, but this was such a good article that came up that actually, put some viewpoint around the UK as well. So we had 100,000 people, um, and this was right after the October 7th stuff. And I thought I saw in here how many people were arrested. I don't see it, but they had a bunch of people that were arrested as well. And of course, 2018, this is, campus protests against the Israeli war going global. And they talk about the current protests going on. So we've got Europe, Italy, Paris. Paris has been arresting people too because they had previous protests that were very violent in the past, and they want to prevent the same sort of thing. And of course, we still have it down in Australia. But let's go down here a ways where I had this parked. And in 2018, 2,500 riot police were mobilized to clear a zone of defense protest that was set up by the zone of defense. And they were anarchist, anti-capitalist, environmentalists. And they again arrested people because they called it a zone of lawlessness. So it's the typical story. Oh, hey, I wasn't sharing any of this, was I? Guess I should have showed you guys this stuff as I was doing that. Yes, I agree, Svetlana. Few students gave a damn about Ukraine or Palestine. It's a Me Too thing, and it makes it easy for outside forces to stir things up. But again, same thing that goes on in Russia. If you get 10,000 protesters in Moscow, you can be guaranteed that it was a small group that got a bunch of people riled up and they went along with, oh, me too, me too. Let's see, going through the comments here. Dave, BLM was with the support of U.S. intelligence, as most things are these days. And yeah, the government's not happy about the protests because why? They get their money from the Israeli lobby in the United States. Look at the Senate and House of Representatives. Many of these guys are Jewish. If you look at the data behind where their funding comes from, they all get funding from the Israeli lobby. So they do not want protests against Palestine. Now, you want to compare Palestine and Ukraine. So, a lot of people killed in Ukraine, a lot of innocent people killed in Ukraine. A lot of Russians killed in this conflict as well, innocent civilian Russians. But, Israel has done, as much, I will say they've done less damage to their opponent, Hamas, than Russia has done against the Ukrainian armed forces. But Israel has killed thousands and thousands and thousands more civilians than either the Ukrainians or the Russians have killed. So, does it make it different? Yes. Is it a different reason to protest against the policies of the Western governments led by the United States? Absolutely not. Same deal. So, but we do see today Macron out there saying that Europe needs to break its ties with the United States and be independent and not under their shackles. I think they see the future coming. Macron is not one of my favorite politicians, but he does sometimes have a clear thought here or there. Okay, Alicia. Yep, I heard that speech. I also saw that the faculty has denounced the Columbia University leadership over that deal. The West is quite rapidly turning into totalitarian states. Quebec is trying to pass a law that lets them seize your house and money without any justification. I heard something about that. I was talking to Rick Walker at Maverick News about this, and I'm a correspondent with them, so we discuss a lot of stories together. But reality is they can do a lot of this. It's when Arcadia and I were talking about freedom of speech. Um, I don't recall about Canada, but the United States actually has a law against bad mouthing Israelis. So Arkady says this is to keep people from, uh, protesting by boycotting Israeli products, things like that. I don't know if I totally buy into that either. Um, It's like on ML, different comment threads. Svetlana, where are you? Are you an American in Crimea or are you on InfoWars Press? I can enable both of them. So, yeah, I actually was going to pull this up, Grassy Knoll. The trucker protest back, what was it, year and a half ago, the first one, peaceful. And they arrested these guys, took their stuff away. And, so this is going on. You don't see the Russians taking stuff away from people because they protested. You go to court, you get a fine, they release you, and that's the end of it. They will keep an eye on you. And yeah, the truckers. Yeah, I'd say the same thing about the farmers in Europe. Denmark, Poland, Hungary, same sort of thing. And they were entirely peaceful too. So, they want to officially give those. There we go. Yes, but now they want to officially give those powers to the government so no one can sue them in courts. Yeah. Did you know that technically you can't sue the US military for war crimes? This is what they stand against when other countries are saying they should be held responsible with Israel because they're not signatories to the International Criminal Court. And they have their laws. You can't actually sue them. So, and suing any government is just sheer craziness. Oh, Svetlana. Okay. Change it from top comments to all comments. It's right on the top of your chat box. So, yeah. So, this is kind of what's going on. The United States for years has been harassing and arresting peaceful protesters. It's always based on, there was violence. The violence is often overblown. Like I say, Kent State was a couple of people threw rocks at the Jeep that, then a couple of National Guard guys were in. And, that was worth shooting and killing several people, injuring several people. And George Floyd, that one, BLM riled that up, and I don't know what was behind that. I won't defend them. In general, you see a lot of, I won't call it BLM protests, but protests by Blacks, African Americans, whatever your word of the day is for them, that are peaceful. I have seen peaceful protests. So, Yeah, so those of you who aren't seeing all the comments, it is actually by default set to show you the top comments in the chat, which means it hides the other ones. So, um, that's the joys of YouTube. Uh, Dave, yes. 96 billion for peace so I can sleep soundly. Um, Yeah, some of that for Israel, most of it for, well, I should say most of it stated for Israel, some of it stated for Israel, most of it stated for Ukraine. In reality, hello. 26 or 36% of that money goes directly to the military industrial complex in the United States, which all of our major politicians sit on their boards or are employees of. So it comes back to them in the form of donations. So that 96 billion was basically, a big campaign donation, and a good majority of it goes into the pocketbooks of those companies, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. We could go down the list. So most of that money Ukraine will never see. When Ukraine gets again, I saw a number that was like 18 to 25 billion of that money. It will go into the pockets of their politicians, and the soldiers at the front will not be equipped with what they need. Um, yes, I do follow some people from Ukraine that I know that actually post the truth about what's going on there. And the soldiers are not equipped. The United States refused to send Patriot missile systems to them. And, because they don't have any. They're pressuring Greece to send them. They don't have any. It was Germany is sending them one, and they say they need seven. Seven isn't going to defend anything in Ukraine other than Kiev and the president. So we kind of went off topic here, but the key of this is all of this stuff is all about money. Money in Western politicians' pockets. All the weapons that Europe has been given to Ukraine. Who do they buy a good majority of their weapons from? United States companies. So the US is putting money in their military industrial complex. It goes back into the politicians' pockets as donations or salaries. Um, Same stuff. If Soros's money is behind the Palestinian protests, um, same thing. It's just money. It's capitalism. How do I make more money off of a conflict? And intelligence. I was supposed to do an interview with somebody last night. We had to reschedule, but he wanted to talk about my involvement in the US government and what I know about the intelligence services in the United States. I can tell you that while Biden was complaining about this 96 billion not being approved, it actually had nothing to do with anything more than their donations and the pocketbooks of the military companies, because intelligence has what they call black sleeve funding, and it's worth billions of dollars. They continued shipping weapons to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan even without this money approved, and this is the way they work. Now, intelligence also gets involved in spreading the propaganda. That's why you've seen the storyline change from peaceful protesters to people throwing rocks to threatening to burn buildings down to, it's George Soros. So this is all being driven by the intelligence services. I worked in this industry in the United States, and I hope to do some streams about this in the near future. I just never get time. So let's gander at comments. So might have started with authentic sentiments, but those sorts of movements are the quickest to be subverted. Yes, because people are easy to steer. A little bit of propaganda, little aggravation in the middle of them, and things go out of control quickly. And yep, soft censorship. Welcome to America. Google being an American company, I won't badmouth them too much. Um, let's see, Ukrainian boards in the US border. Did you know Ukrainian boards in the US border? I'm not following you on that one, Alicia. Ukrainian boards is the US border. Please clarify for me. Yep. So this is how little they're getting, and most of that will go into their politicians' pockets. After all, their president recently bought a new condo in Dubai. He's got one in Italy. He's got them all over the world at this point. Um, yep. American people unelected a member of the U.S. Congress, they may become a lobbyist. Absolutely. And who don't you hear about anymore? You don't hear about the NRA. Um, I'm not a proponent of mass shootings, but that's the only time you hear about them. And then is what it is you have the NRA lobbying for gun control, but you have a majority of the government, the guys who don't want Americans to be armed, lobbying to do away with citizens having guns. Now, I'll tell you this. It's a lot safer in Russia where everybody doesn't have guns. You can go out at night, you can walk, you can talk to your neighbors, even downtown Moscow. So, choo choo. Alicia means Ukrainian is owned by US. So, oh, yeah, it's the 51st state. I'm going to agree with my friend Larry Johnson and Ray McGovern on this one. I'll tell you this is if they get their pensions. They haven't paid pensions or medical to anybody in the Donetsk and Lugansk areas for the last 10 years. So, yes. And the reality is you have the CIA in Ukraine directing things. You've got the NSA, you've got UK MI5, MI6, all directing Ukrainians on what to strike with what and where. Um, part of this $96 billion package was for long range attack missiles. And, it again comes out. We told them they can't use them within the borders of Russia. They're only to be used within the borders of Ukraine, except they've been using them outside the borders of Ukraine for a while now. They've had the long range ATACMS. The government even admitted that they shipped long range ATACMS to them back in February, long before this money was approved. So, have they shot some at Crimea? Absolutely. They shot like 7 of them. All but 2 were shot down. The 2 that struck the air base caused very little damage. But, they just lie to people. Okay, so since we went off topic anyway, the significance, in my opinion, of Edward Snowden's Russian citizenship. I don't think there is any significance to it other than the fact that, he came here, he was on a, when you're afraid to go home to your country. I forget what it's called. But they allowed him to stay. He actually took several years to get that citizenship. He has not publicly been sharing anything with them, but I would venture that, um, you know, there's been some sharing of confidential information by Snowden with the Russian government. Um, that would not be uncommon. It's very easy, not that I know anybody like this, to take a very sour attitude towards your native land when you see all the wrong that they are doing. Um, you know, reality is I brought certain information from the United States. I do consult with the Russian government. So I'm no different than he is. It is not how I got my citizenship, but, um, so that is my personal opinion on this. And yeah, I know, Svetlana. Many people own guns. Usually they're hunting rifles, or you have to be former military. So, yeah, it's the culture. I have the right to shoot somebody if they come onto my property or into my home. And yeah, we do see this go on in Russia as well. Um, it's Russia has killings. They have men murdering their wives. They have wives murdering their husbands. And, you know, people here, men know how to use guns, and a lot of the women too, because, all the men were in the military, not anymore. Many of the women were in the military, still are. Um, but it's much harder to get and maintain a permit to have a hunting rifle in Russia than it is to get a permit to carry a gun in the United States. United States, you don't need a permit for a rifle or a shotgun. Russia, you do. And me in Washington State, I went to the police department. I fill out the application. They electronically fingerprinted me. They had 30 days to decide if I could carry a gun. 30 days later, they said, come pick up your permit. It was that easy. Minnesota actually made me take a gun training course before they gave me a permit. Now, in Russia, every few years, you have to go in for the medical exam, the psychological exam, the training. They put you through a bunch of stuff. Yep. You probably watched either Tim Kirby or Joseph Rose, since they both recently did it. So that's why I'm guessing that they're both friends of mine. Um, quite honestly, the psychological evaluation is kind of like the psychological evaluation for a driver's license here. You have to have that as well. It's a bit of a joke, quite honestly. I had to have a psychological evaluation to take citizenship. And my visit with the psychologist or the psychiatrist lasted for about 3 minutes at immigration. And his sole question to me is, have you ever thought about killing yourself? I said, no. He's okay, stamp. And that was it. So I do find that the psychological tests here are pretty weak. For driving license, it wasn't even that. For a gun, it may be more extensive. I don't know. As a naturalized citizen of Russia, I don't know if I'm even, eligible to apply for a gun. Don't need one, don't want one, not concerned about it. Grassy Knoll, I am from all over the United States. I worked in Washington State, California, Arizona, DC, Virginia, Florida. If you can find a military company or a military base that does intelligence services, I've been there. So I shouldn't say intelligence services, but specifically propaganda. Um, so I've been all over the world doing things like that and all over the United States. I had the opportunity to travel to many NATO countries and US friendly countries to help them with propaganda issues. Yeah, it's a little more than a box check, but like I say, I don't know if that's the case with guns. Dialogue works. Um, other than the fact that his voice annoys me when I listen to him, he actually does good interviews. So, yeah, I'll agree with you. And Fort Lewis, like I say, if there is a propaganda base somewhere in the United States or tied to the US military, I've been there. So Fort Bragg is actually where Cyber Command is based. And I spent a lot of time doing trainings there for the military on how to do propaganda. So when people say I'm full of crap and I don't know anything about propaganda, detecting what is and what isn't, I can tell you, I worked on their computer systems as an engineer. I trained on them and I trained military guys to spread propaganda out. These were all projects funded by uh, the DoD, Cyber Command, the three-letter agencies, and I have pictures I could share other than technically, um, unlike Snowden, I won't break that NDA. Um, of some of the training grounds. So you would be surprised the training grounds they have for terrorism and counterterrorism in the United States on US soil about how to commit it, how to prevent it, and what to do after a terror attack. So maybe one of these days I will just say screw it. But quite honestly, I don't want to wake up and you know, find myself being forcibly deported by the US as my wife is frantically calling the Russian government trying to get me out of trouble. The advantage I have is I know the Russian government will get me out of trouble or attempt to get me out of trouble anyway. So, since we're dealing with a whole pile of topics and I've got about 10 minutes left here, anyone else have any questions? If not, then I am going to shut things down early. I'll give you a couple of minutes to get your comments in there. Yeah, Grassino. I plan to stay out of trouble. It's I'm pretty compliant with what I'm told around here that I'm allowed to do and not allowed to do. Um, again, because of my background, I have a special set of friends here who kind of keep an eye out for us, but they can't prevent everything. Okay, if nobody else has anything to say, um, Svetlana, you've been unusually unopinionated and quiet today. I'm really was hoping to stir you up. I guess I needed Arkady to stir things up. Oh, more corrupt, the United States or the Russian Federation? I don't typically like to speculate because I've lived my life dealing with facts. If I was going to speculate, I would say the United States is more corrupt than Russia. Um, however, I don't believe either country does not have corruption going on, including Russia. I will say that. Um, I see a lot of corruption at the local and regional levels, a lot of it here. And you know, it's part of what I do with some people here is not causing corruption, but preventing it. The thing I will say, and I often hear about how honest the U.S. president and the Senate and the House of Representatives, all these politicians are, the most honest lawyers in the whole world. Keep in mind, most of them are lawyers, um, but um, they would have you believe that they're not corrupt and they aren't stealing money. As we started the show with, um, a lot of the money flows back into those same politicians' pockets through the military industrial complex. Um, I often hear that Vladimir Putin is corrupt. Um, I have seen no evidence myself. I have seen speculation, no proof, but I will say this, which is vastly different in Russia than it is in the United States. At least the Russian government looks out for their people. If they give a contract to one of their friends and they make a little bit on it, um, reality is the money they're spending is being spent on the people. And I did a video a couple days ago about voting on what projects in my region that I would like to see done. Um, I agree. Good Christian man. Um, like I say, if he was corrupt, at least he spends the money on his people. So I won't make a call either way on that. Um, what did you expect, Claudia? That I wouldn't say anything bad about Russia or whatever. Uh, yeah. So going back to Svetlana's question here, the other thing I'll say is I personally see the Russian government making great steps to fight corruption. Um, I cannot tell you how many politicians in Crimea that have been arrested over the last few years for exactly that. The head of the electric company was taking bribes. Um, he would take a good amount of money from people to issue them a uh, electric meter and then connect it. And if you didn't pay him, you didn't get your electric meter, you didn't get your electricity. And his career didn't last long. The second in command of the Black Sea Fleet, he was recently arrested for taking a bribe, allegedly. And so I see them going far for solving this problem here. And do I still see it? Absolutely. And, hopefully it will just continue getting better. I don't see these steps being taken in the United States. I would say the same thing for Canada and the United Kingdom. And I'm going to pick on the United Kingdom especially because, you know, until they started calling Ukraine the 51st state, I sure thought the UK was the 51st state, but I think they're the breakaway state. I think they were the 51st. Um, Claudia, I didn't upload any clips, but I'll tell you what, since I forgot to share this, uh, I will. I think I have a clip or two I can share with you. This is the problem. When you're producing things all by yourself, you sometimes forget to do things. It's hard to be a producer. And the other thing you need to know is I can't play full clips because YouTube will censor me, believe it or not. Let's see. Let me find my... Oh, I had a Fox News one here, and I know they had a clip. If it will let me play it here, because I am not in a Russia-friendly or any Fox News-friendly area. Fox News. Oh, can you tell I spend a lot of time on VK? I don't know if it was this one or the other one. Okay. Actually, I had this queued up. And it does not like playing for me. I'm going to disappear probably for 10 seconds. Okay, you should see me again. So this is one I actually had queued up I was going to play. If I can get it to run here. Fox News is anti-Russia, regardless, ever since Tucker Carlson left. So they had a pretty good statement out here at about 3 minutes and 16 seconds. Once it loads up. So this was classic. There we go. Choo, choo, choo. Share it. So this is a Fox News broadcast from a couple of days ago. And
war effort in Gaza. On the one hand, we're now supporting with additional funding this very just war that the Israelis are fighting. At the same time, they're talking about issuing sanctions or withholding certain funds.
So can you hear that? Very just war against
IDF,
Gaza.
the very same army that we're looking to fund here. The president is trying to figure out how to walk a fine line. I think the message is muddled right now, and I do wonder whether these campuses...
Belana, it's on the screen.
So the president is walking a fine line. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just looked at that line and walked right over it. Listen to what she said at the same event that the president was at yesterday in Virginia. Listen here.
It's especially important that we remember the power of young people shaping this country today, of all days, as we once again witness the leadership of those peaceful student-led protests on campuses like Columbia, Yale, Berkeley, and many others.
So she described them as peaceful student-led protests. This is the way the White House described those over the weekend. This blatant anti-Semitism is reprehensible and dangerous, and it has absolutely no place on college campuses or anywhere in our country.
So there you go. Two sides of the same story. And, you know, so there you go, Claudia. There's your clip. So, if I was remonetized on YouTube for not being so blatantly pro-Russian, I could probably afford to hire a producer that would deal with putting up clips and things for me. But I have to do the research myself. I have to set the studio up myself. And I have to not only talk to you guys, but I have to read the comments, respond to those. I have to do the clips. So it's a lot of work. So That said, if you want to see more of this and you want to see me do a little classier job of things, I'll give you a link where you can make a donation, or you can find all the places in the description below. And so, no QR code on the screen. We'll get that up here. You can scan that. Or shoot. Like I say, best place to find out where you can donate is actually in the description of the videos. We have a few places we regularly will take. If I can get rid of this. And maybe I can get somebody to help me out by producing. This is one of the reasons why I have a co-host usually, because then he deals with some of it. And Alicia, I don't know if Biden would have been impeached 50 years ago either. He was pretty mouthy, and think about the things he did with Scott Ritter. It's been this way for a long time. So anyway, we'll let it go with that. I promise I will actually upload clips and things next time. And if I'm talking about something, remind me to put it on the screen. It would help me. So everybody have a good Saturday, morning or evening, wherever you happen to be. And see y'all, I don't know, later in the week or next Saturday. One or the other. Well, you'll see us next Saturday regardless. So talk to y'all later. Maybe. Yep. Talk to you later.